need at least, we have three vacancies.
Three vacancies, right?
And we have a couple holdovers.
Except the application was on.
Yeah, I see, you got
Excuse
three
me, may I
more.
ask a question? Sure. Jeff Janvon, my wife and I are the new owners of the PO Valley. So this is our first meeting. What is the Hāmākua Action Committee?
It's a committee to report to the county regarding planning and development issues and how we want to see the community develop over the next 20, 30 years, stretching from Hāmākua basically to Peppertail, up by.
Yeah, that.
So-
Yes.
You go on the county website, you can get the planning commission,
Okay.
you can get a copy of the Hāmākua CDP.
Okay.
It's the existing plan that we've given to the county.
Got it.
And
Okay.
and by the way, every district in the islands has a CDP.
Okay.
I'm sure that the whole.
Great. Thank you.
All right, yep. Okay, let's see. Oh, and then also, just for everyone's information, there's links to public notices regarding variance applications, subdivision applications, planning commission meetings, and other planning department applications can be found on the planning department's website. I'm sort of checking that out today, and you can certainly find all those things on there. Yes.
You know, I had a comment last meeting that I think at some point we should follow up on, and that was a request that perhaps we should even put as a motion at some point that all subdivision applications and rezoning applications, possibly variance applications, like you had mentioned, and possibly the minutes of the planning commission meetings be forwarded to the chair of the CDP Action Committee. You know, I found that there was very little likelihood in the course of a month that I would actually go look to see what applications for subdivisions were on the county website. I think it would be very valuable if subdivision applications were actually communicated from planning department to the chair, and then the chair would decide whether they would want to bring that up to the committee.
Right, I think that's a great idea. I was gonna mention that when I was looking today, I was looking by district where they were. And there wasn't anything new in Hāmākua, so I mean, it seems like it's wouldn't be a really ponderous thing to do. Because there doesn't look like there's many that often, at least not for our district here. So maybe that's something that we could actually.
That the request is to have planning email chair, minutes, of PC meetings. Is that
Well,
correct?
Well, that was one suggestion, and then I guess the part I was thinking of and agree with Tom is just when you go to the website and you see the current applications. It's pretty short and sweet going there doing. I understand it's short and sweet for us too, but planning could do that.
To forward out that notice to chairs?
Forward it out if it has to do with Hāmākua.
I
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I mean, maybe they could do that right when they're making up the notice or something. I don't know what the process is. but-
Okay, that's something we can
Can
take
look at.
back and review with the other divisions.
Yeah. Okay,
The idea, with that, just to make sure I present it correctly, is to have the application be reviewed by the committee, or to have the application for the committee, what would
it's
be?
more, I think it's more for our awareness of what's going on, rather than finding out 2 weeks after the fact that something happened, we were going, oh my gosh, we would like to made a comment on that.
Okay.
So awareness.
The county council and planning has to approve any recommendations from the planning commission. But I think it would be best for us to get the information while it's at the planning commission, because that's before it goes to county council. Because when it goes to county council, it's usually for the first reading or even approval.
So maybe we're not even, well, maybe minutes is one thing, but even agenda posting is another thing. So before the item gets heard to the planning commission, there can be time for the public, another avenue of outreach per se, for the public to be able to prepare testimony when it is heard at.
We're only interested in those that relate to the CDP.
Absolutely, within within the Hāmākua CDP
Yeah,
district.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm not sure that, the timing, I think, is the issue. What you had said, eventually, in most cases, the CDP, the Action Committee, will be presented with subdivision proposals, such as happened last year with the Lahua division, the Lahua Street subdivision in Hāmākua. But it was probably a year after it had been presented, and I'm guessing a year after it had been presented to, as an application to the planning department. And I think it was right at the end stage of the process when our committee was made a presentation in regards to this. I'm merely thinking that it would be possibly desirable that, we might be able to be party to kind of an examination of the process, examination of the proposal, maybe earlier by notice from the planning department. Maybe even as the application might be presented, but I don't know whether that is practical or not.
So, yeah, I heard him. Well, never can say when the application was filed. The commission, Jerry gave notice. When
But it's filed.
yeah, the subdivision, that's how you said.
Yeah, yeah.
Subdivision application, the zoning application, and possibly variances, so that way, right, when it's planning department, Jerry gave notice, and then the committee wants to take that.
Well,
That's what I'm hearing too, upon submittal, the day that the application is submitted. I mean, it gets CC'd to a number of people in the planning commission, it's just adding one email address to the CC. Hey, new application's been submitted. And there's clearly a list of people that get the notification when an application's been submitted. It sounds to me that all you're asking is have a Hāmākua CDC among those that are notified upon application, upon submittal, upon filing, every word you want to use that.
So we have applications that you can go apply to get a member. Sounds like we could be good.
It just, to me, it's a matter of semantics. I think we're all asking for the same thing,
Yeah.
that notification be supplied to the CDC at the same time that the planning department gets that application.
Yeah, I would agree to that. It's timeliness is what it's all about. So that's the earliest practical time we could get it, I guess, so. Whatever you can come up with or let us know. Okay. All right, and Heather Kimball, I don't see Heather, so who's up
Oh.
there? There's Heather.
Hi, guys. How are you today?
Ready for a report?
Sure, yes. Aloha from Washington, DC. I am here in the Capitol. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So this is the annual NACO National Association of Counties Legislative Conference. We are meeting with our congressional delegation, Senator Schatz and Hirono, and Representatives Case and Takuda tomorrow. Mostly here talking about emergency preparedness, disaster relief, speaking with the folks at FEMA around emergency routes and insurance as a big issue for our island. Also meeting with folks from USDA, EPA, and Economic Development Administration, talking about wastewater and water solutions for our county. So lots of good things going on here. Still lots of federal money available through the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm really excited about a program that they have that allows the county to get a direct funding rebate for any energy efficiency and transportation efficiency things that we put into place. So for example, if we buy an electric bus, we can get a direct payment from the federal government to reimburse us for some of that cost. This is all actually happening through the IRS, which is interesting. As far as council projects, we did recently go through the first step in the process with regard to the short-term vacation rental and Ohana dwelling bills. So they had their first hearings in committee earlier this month and have gone to the planning commissions. We expect the planning commissions to hear them sometime in April. So please be prepared to weigh in on that conversation if it's something of interest to you. We are also working on a long-term rental tax class. At this time, we have, the short-term rental tax class, the affordable rental tax class, and the residential tax class. This bill 104 proposes a tax class for long-term rentals that would be a little bit more than the affordable rental tax class, but a little bit less than the investment property tax class, hoping to encourage more people to put their dwellings into the affordable tax class. We have some other projects going through, working with Council Member Connie Lee Kleinfelder on a roads in limbo bill. And then we are also doing further work on cleaning up and a little bit around the animal control project. So if you recall, in the summer of last year, we created the Animal Control and Protection Agency. There's a few things that we need to go back and tidy up with that. So you'll hear that, you'll see that coming through very soon. And then the last item that I wanted to mention is that at our next hearing on, it would be the 20th, I think, of February, whatever the Tuesday is next month, we will be having a presentation on economic development in the county, looking at areas where that have been identified as growth sectors and looking at ways we can support further diversification of our economy to support, something other than just tourism as the way to provide job opportunities for our young people and economic growth in our county. So that might be something of interest to tune into if that's a subject area that you're interested. So that basically covers it. Also happy to answer any questions the body may have.
For your Heather. Is there going to be any discussion about federal funding for cesspool elimination?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the key points that we plan on talking about with our congressional delegation tomorrow. So I'm here as a representative for the State Association of Counties, representing the whole state of Hawaii, and it's a priority for all 4 counties to address the cesspool wastewater problem. So we are looking at seeking federal funding, particularly to support diverse distributed wastewater systems. So these are smaller wastewater management systems than your typical wastewater treatment plant, as well as some of the other plants that we do have that need repair, including Hāmākua, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Also on the 20th, we have a hearing on a resolution with that is about an agreement between the mayor and the EPA. This is an agreement, it's this resolution about an agreement of consent. So this is an agreement between us and the EPA to basically fix our wastewater problems. By having this agreement of consent with the EPA, basically we're saying, yes, we have a wastewater problem, we're agreeing to fix it, and it puts us in a better position to get federal funding to address the wastewater problems on the island.
One other question for you, Heather.
Yes.
Saddle Road got built with federal funding. Is there any opportunities to get additional federal funding for county roads?
Yes and no. It depends. There's a lot of focus, particularly with what happened in Lahaina, on funding for emergency routes or expanding existing roadways for emergencies. So that I think is a potential right now. Senator Schatz and Hirono are actually co-sponsoring a bill on that matter, so I'll be checking in with them tomorrow on the status of that legislation. There is a funding component to that. As far as like things like roads in limbo, I think that's less likely that we'll be able to get federal funding for that. But certainly if it has to do with emergency preparedness and resilience, I think there's potential for funding there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Heather, this is Brad. Hi, couple questions. The first one is, can you update us on the status of Kole Park? Because I think the last time you had mentioned it was going to be opening in December and it's already February, so I think people are wondering.
Yeah. So the reason that it has not opened yet is that it was determined that Helco needed to install an additional pole to go ahead and connect electricity to the park. There is a requirement for Helco to access some private property to do that work, and they have not been given they have not been given access to that. It's in Helco's hands. They've got their lawyers on it. Unfortunately, anytime you get lawyers involved, that is potentially going to cause a delay. Maurice and I are, Director Parks and Rec, Director Messina and I are really hopeful we can get it open by March at the latest. But there's really nothing we can do from the county side to compel this private owner to allow access.
Okay. And then Elizabeth.
Heather?
Yes.
So when you say the living so close there, maybe we can help. I mean, what landlords do need to be contacted that supposedly are resistive?
I don't actually know who it is, and I probably shouldn't. I maybe shouldn't have even said that publicly, that's the issue, but that's the issue.
Yeah, because it's
Well, listen, it's way past your bedtime, isn't it?
It is. It's like 9:30 here, so I'm doing my best, and I've been on the go all day. So
one more question, Heather, and that
So
is.
wait, let's stick with Coley, because this is like a 7-year closing of the park. I mean, what has to be done? I'm very unclear who has to be contacted.
Jennifer Zelko, you're here. And by the way, Jen, Tamara Paulton says hello.
Yep.
She's here with me.
Long time friend. So tell her I said hi. Thank you so much. And actually don't worry, Heather. I think it's fine that we kind of talk about some of the issues. We weren't granted permission to go over a private landowner area to get to the poles that we actually need to get to. However, we're having to do a workaround, which takes a little bit more time. I think one of the things we're going to have to do is actually, when we do the work for this pole, we're going to have to shut down one of the lanes on the highway. So what we're working with right now is state highways to get a permit in order to do that. So it wasn't going to be impossible to get it done. It just was a much longer process, I think, than it needed to be. But our engineers are very good, and they have found another way to do it. It's just, in general, like to shut down.
Is there a reason why this wasn't anticipated? I mean, in the planning of the park, and this is happening at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't think we anticipated that this particular landowner was going to say no to getting over the property. So unfortunately, and sometimes that happens and people have different reasons, and I understand that, but I think there's another way to get this done. It just will require closing down one of the lanes of the highway, and that requires a permit with state highways. So we had a meeting with them on, today's the 12th, on Friday. So I really appreciate it because Chair Kimball has been calling and following up with us and wanting to make sure this gets done.
Thanks for adding context. Yeah, appreciate it.
Elizabeth, do you have anything else you wanna add?
No, just a question.
Okay, yeah. Kevin, the other thing, and somewhat related is, you know, the status of the FEMA request for, you know, the road on the old Mamaloho Highway for, Kini Bridge and the embankment, because again, we've been sort of just waiting. And so I know you're there in DC, so
Mhm.
do you have any update on that?
Yeah, I spoke to the Public Works Director about a week or so ago, and he mentioned that FEMA has initially rejected their change in the scope of work. So now it's back in the county's hands to fix that scope of work in order to get FEMA's approval. So that is with the county, and their engineers are working on it.
Is this specifically in regards to the embankment?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, embankment where?
Yeah, right now, Policoli Bridge is completed, the small Policoli Bridge right in front of the park's entry. And then if you go up the road towards Hāmākua, there was apparently, you know, some failure during Hurricane Lane way back when,
I see.
and we're all aware of it.
Yeah.
And they went in and scoped it out, and then now they're asking to rescope, and so the rescoping went to FEMA, and that's been rejected, and you know, it's like, you know how long that takes. And so,
Yeah, everything, I mean, after August with the fires in Maui, anything going through FEMA is taking that much longer. So they only got back to us about a month ago, not even a month ago, rejecting the scope of work, the expanded scope of work for that portion of Old Mamalohoa. So, but yeah, all I can say is it's back in the county's hands, and they're working on redoing that scope of work.
yeah, because you know, and I believe that in 2024, this year, they're supposed to start work on Policoli Bridge, right? Is that-
The main bridge? No.
Yeah, I mean, is that
They're gonna do Hakalau and Nanole
oh,
more,
that was beautiful.
yeah. Koli will be last, so they're gonna do, they got the 76 million for Nanue and Hakalau, and then I just put in the paperwork for Wailuku River Bridge, which would be the third one that they work on. We have not fully secured the funding from the feds for that one, and then they'll come back and do the Kole highway bridge.
Yeah, because it's all related to resilience and emergency preparedness, because
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Could you give us an update on the status of like Peel Valley Road and where they are with that work and what's next and
Mm-hmm.
access issues?
Yeah, so they are into the second phase and scoping out the project of the second phase. So the first phase was to do some paving work at the top section of the road and do some significant remediation of the rock fall, both above and below at the most dangerous areas on the road. And then the second phase includes the lower part as well as installing some rockfall prevention measures. That is in the EA phase, environmental assessment phase. That is expected to take, at this point, probably another year. So we're still at least a year out from the next phase of the project actually starting. I will say that with the help of the YPO steering committee, we are working on a bill going through the state legislature. The House bill is House Bill 1856. The Senate bill is Senate Bill 2226. So 3 2s, 2226. They are, what the bill proposes is that in certain conditions where the counties have been conveyed a roadway that was initially substandard and is the sole access to a culturally or environmentally sensitive area, the counties would be authorized to institute some sort of management plan for access. After working with the steering committee now for almost 4 years, this seemed like the best approach for us to have a full management plan for the road once it's opened. The House Bill 1856 passed its first committee hearing last week. So we're working now to get the second hearing with the Judiciary Committee at the House, which is led by David Tarnas, who's familiar with the situation. He's the rep for the northwest side of the island. The Senate bill, we actually didn't think it was going to get a hearing, but surprisingly, it is scheduled now for a hearing the 13th, tomorrow, I think, right? I kind of lost track of what day it is. Yes, tomorrow, tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So we are excited about the potential that this will be moving through both chambers simultaneously, which will improve the likelihood of passage, of course. Right now, I do have support from Hawaii State Department of Transportation, as well as the Department of Natural Resources for this legislation. And that goes a long way in terms of getting the support of the legislature to have the administrative bodies supporting the legislation. So encourage you to look at those bills and lend your support if it's something that you're willing to get behind.
Heather, you mentioned the Hāmākua waste treatment plant. I live in Hāmākua. I should have known what was wrong with the treatment plant, but I don't. Could you make a brief explanation of that?
Well, it's like all of our infrastructure. It was built a long time ago. It hasn't been maintained, and there are leakage issues, there are safety issues, and there is definitely a need for investment for potential, expansion. Richard has been emailing me about the cesspool or the wastewater management plan and the meetings that the Department of Environmental Management will be holding around that plan and cesspool conversion. And, the plant there is one that we would eventually hope to connect more people to and expand to get people off of cesspools. So I mentioned earlier that we will be debating this resolution about the agreement of consent. The agreement of consent and this resolution has the detailed agreement that basically spells out what is wrong with every plant on this island. And I hope that folks are appreciative of the transparency that the county is going to have about how bad our issues are with wastewater. I don't have the resolution number in front of me, but I can share that out with the planning department staff to share with you guys so that you can look at the agreement of consent, and that will go into detail about each of the wastewater treatment plants and what is needed.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Questions? All right, thank you, Heather.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye, Heather.
Thank you. I'll try to stay warm. It's freezing over here.
Oh, no. All right. Okay, is there any other committee members or staff that have any announcements to give? No?
I have one thing that I'm a little concerned about, David.
Okay,
At this Waipio Valley Committee that they've established to try to deal with some culturally sensitive things in the valley. We haven't been privy to that, and we should be. Because Waipio Valley is, it's a national treasure.
yeah. no, we can
Richard,
certainly-
Brad is a member of that steering committee.
Yeah, and I reported at the last,
Right. But do we know anything about the legislation that's being proposed at state level?
well, that's what Heather just shared with us. In terms of, you know, the road, get us so that they have some way of, in special cases like YPO to, deal with, you know, some of the issues in terms of restricting access because of the, you know, the safety issues and cultural issues. Yeah.
Okay.
So you certainly can look up those two proposed
Yeah.
bills. and
Yeah, I'm
find
gonna
out,
do that.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we'll move on to approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, so there's the motion.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion?
I would like to mention that in the actually, I like very much the format of the minutes in that it directs us to the timestamp of the actual meeting, and we can go to YouTube and watch what was actually taking place. You know, that the thing that I'd like to mention though, is that we were, well, I had made a comment at the last meeting that I thought it would be desirable to have a committed interaction group formed for discussion of presentation of comments on the general plan from the committee as a whole. We had decided that we would submit the list of the individual comments from the various committee members who did submit comments. But of course, the statute that let's see, I think it's 16(6) or something from the county code indicates that the committee should make comment or make recommendations toward amendment of the general plan. And I think that would supersede the individual comments, the comments from individuals. As has been mentioned, we have the opportunity to make those comments to, as the general plan is submitted to the planning commission and then subsequently to the county council. But I have a feeling that at that point, when it is decided by the planning department that they will announce that it is time now that this will be submitted to the planning commission, I have a feeling we'll be in the same spot, that we won't have time to actually formulate a permitted interaction group and then have sufficient discussion and then present it to the committee. So what I think might be desirable would be that we would form that permitted interaction group now, and when the time would come for that committee to actually engage with a plan that has been now in its final form, they would be able to do so expeditiously.
So you're suggesting we create a pig?
Either now or in the next meeting or two,
Sure.
you know.
Because they've extended the discussion after the month, didn't they? The final the general plan is I think at the end of March.
Yeah. 1st of March. Perhaps next meeting, I'll bring this up again, and we could possibly put it on the agenda, that we might at that point want to form a permitted interaction group to address the general plan comments.
That sounds fine. Yeah, it's for me. Okay, so, yeah,
Because the general public doesn't know what your comments were, it would really be helpful to have a little bit of a summary of what the key issues you think there are. That would be really helpful before.
yeah, so at this point, it's just a list of specific line items in the existing document, so it's, I mean, there's probably not 100, maybe, 200 comments. So I'm just saying that, right, well, that's what I'm getting at, is maybe
It's only
with this,
110.
with this process, maybe it can be narrowed down where it's more concise and easier to take in.
Right, and what you all agree on.
Well, and that's another, good point, I think, for making it earlier rather than later. Again, perhaps at the next meeting, would be reasonable.
Sounds good. All right, okay, so, right, so that's the discussion. Any other discussion? No, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, so the motion carries. And looks like we're to public testimony. The committee will now call for statements from the public as stated in the published agenda. Members of the public may provide public testimony regarding any agenda item now or at the time the agenda item is called to order. If there is anyone here who would like to testify, please fill out the sign-up form on the front table and give it to our staff. Okay. Did we have anything filled out or anything?
No.
Anybody, was there anyone who wanted to specifically give some testimony?
I just have one thing, if I could, on the emergency routes discussion, just to say that it wasn't there going to be a full fire preparedness plan, and I wondered what the time.
That's the first order of business on our today's meeting.
The emergency routes,
Yeah.
yes. You're
So
talking,
that's related to the fire, is that related to the fire plan?
well, it's partially related to the fire plan, yes, because it's,
I just wondered if there was an overall plan, I thought that was being prepared somewhere by the county.
Could I comment on that?
Certainly.
Yeah, I spoke with Nani, who had made the presentation to our group back, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago from Hawaii Wildfire Management. And she indicated that there had been perhaps a lack of communication between the various departments and agencies that plan had been presented to, and for a needed endorsement and the Hawaii Wildfire Management Group. And because they were expecting to have that endorsement and essentially a paper that could be submitted to the public by January. But she said that they will, and granted, they've been extremely busy, understandably, due to the circumstances, but she said that she would redouble her efforts. She would have to, because the time limit for the agency's signatures had expired, she would have to go through and present it to each of the agencies again. So that's where that stands. She said she would expect to be able to have that now by March. Yes.
okay. Was there any Zoom testimony?
I have a comment.
Uh-huh.
At one point, there was, in my mind, as I had been chair last year, I had believed that there might be some desirability in having this period of public comment be available to any subject that was, whether it was on the agenda or not. I can imagine the situation, and this was, I think, discussed in the last meeting or two. I can imagine the situation where somebody has something that they consider to be important, it's not on the agenda, but how do they communicate that with the action committees? Well, I think one very reasonable method would be that we would open up comments from the public to non-agendized items.
So I think, I guess I assumed that's what we were doing, but
Well,
Did I not?
I don't know.
yeah. So I thought the idea was we have people that sign up to do things relating to things that are on the agenda, and then people can make comments that are outside the agenda that they want.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the format that we were using. I thought that
Maybe
public
it wasn't.
comments were only acceptable on agendized items.
So that certainly wasn't my intention, so, but there's,
Okay.
yeah.
If,
Right.
if I may provide a suggestion, you really should keep testimony to items that are on the agenda. However, you could put a standing item on the agenda being, public recommendations for future agenda items or something like that. And if that were on the agenda, then people could speak to that about issues that they would like to see this action committee discuss potentially at a later point, and that would be kind of a open, but at least it would be agendized.
Is the reason you feel that way to keep kind of control of the meeting in terms of length of the meeting? I'm
No, it's
not sure.
really more procedural. That would be typically how you would do things under sunshine law and parliamentary procedure. It is really up to the chair's discretion how much leeway they want to give testifiers with respect to how germane they keep their comments to the items on the agenda. But my recommendation, in order to maintain transparency for the CDP Action Committee, would be to agendize suggestions for future meetings, and then people can testify on that.
Yeah, so that could be like under, item 6. Some stuff.
So typically, if you're, I don't know, you're following Robert's rules of order.
Yeah.
Meetings, in order for, to your point, to keeping control of the agenda, not letting things go totally crazy, there's usually exactly what you have, testimony on the agenda. And then at the end, after even agenda for the next meeting, where you can have comments about it. Anyway, you can have an open forum, which can even be after the meeting is closed, too. You can do it before or after, but that way you have control the flow of it and don't let things go, completely haywire while you're running a business.
Well, I have to
But it's
tell
good
you,
to do.
I have to tell you, I only want to be here for a couple hours.
There you go. So that's the point. If you close the meeting, you can leave. You don't have to stay.
So why don't we, could we have staff come up with some wordage that would allow us the opportunity to do that, and then it would be discussion of the chairman to try to control the.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Does that sound
Yeah,
reasonable?
great.
Okay. All right, but I just have to keep track of where we are here. Oh, we didn't have any Zoom testimony, I see, okay. Okay, I guess we're down to the agenda items. First one is emergency routes discussion. Decision-making on whether the committee will investigate potential evacuation routes such as Mud Lane, Upper Cane Hall Road, and Old Airport Road, Hāmākua. Is there anyone that wanted to give testimony on that agenda item?
I have a question. The wildfire plan, the fire prevention plan that everyone's so hot about. That this is so important right now in a way that it's never been important before. That evacuation routes are intimately entwined with fire management, because if you can't stop the fire, you do want people to get out. And there are a number of towns on this island that only have one road. And if the cars are piled up on that road, you're gonna burn. And so I believe that they're intricate entwined.
Okay, so I think We wanted to talk about,
Sure, and we have Pico on Zoom.
Okay.
Since we're talking about this item, emergency ROS discussion and its relation to the fire plan that has been brought up. Pico's come today and talk about the KS company, which is the power lines that they, want to take a moment to come online and say that, so they don't have to wait till the last agenda and close business.
okay,
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Kevin. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'll let Kevin take this part.
Okay, so what was the question again? Sorry. What was it? Terry, ask the question and I will speak to which part.
I think, sorry, specifically about Kapehu Road and the trimming of vegetation.
Okay, so the question is trimming along Kapehu Road. Is that the question? Make sure that I
Yes.
answer the right one. Okay,
Yes.
so we have a 18-month trim cycle, and actually we had the contractors scheduled to be in Kapehu Road. Actually, they were working at Hāmākua Coast last quarter of 2023. They didn't finish Kapehu Road because they had to schedule some access that they was having a hard time with our tree trimming contractors. So they're planning on being out there sometime this week to next week, trying to get in. Part of the reason was the vegetation guys were saying that they couldn't get their trucks in. So what they're going to end up doing is they're going to actually mow the areas of access first so that they can get their trucks in, because the trucks are heavy, right? And if we doze into those areas, normally because the area you guys live in, which is dirt, will turn into mud and they'll never get the trucks in, right? So two choices, right? They can not get the trucks in and climb, but if they climb, that means we got to take an outage to do the trimming. So at that point in time, the tree trimmers didn't want to mow. They was going to ask for an outage. What our forester came back and said is, no, you guys can mow, get your trucks in because you can get close, and then you can trim without having to take an outage to your guys' area. So they're scheduling that sometime between this week and next week. And normally our trim cycle, what we call a trim cycle, it's the average growth rate for the trees. We use what they call an 18-month trim cycle. And that 18-month trim cycle comes up, and then we go back into the areas and we try to trim again. So Kapehu Road, it's pretty much right there. It's not, sorry that we hadn't gotten it done yet. Should have been done last quarter. But like I said, the tree trimmers did run into a question about outage or other options, and our forester came back and said, no, you will mow and then you will drive your trucks and then you can cut without taking an outage to the line. Hope I answered that question. Hope it's clear.
I have a question, just to follow up on that. You said trimming, but we were concerned that the trees are too close to the power lines and wondered how far back you're gonna cut the trees, how many feet are you gonna leave clear?
That is a great question. So we use an 18-month trim cycle. And normally what we do is we cut back from the line 12 feet to create that area for growth. And 12 feet, and this is the trick, right, is that different trees have different growth rates, right? And you guys are all familiar with that. Some trees grow really quickly, some trees grow at a slower rate. So on an average, it's an 18-month trim cycle. Would we have to come back earlier if there's certain type of trees? We might have to, but we try to meet that. Can we come back later for certain trees? We might, depends on the season, rain, all those pieces. But once they cut this one, then it'll be about an 18-month trim cycle again before we get back in. And 12 feet away from the line.
Some of the trees are already about 50 feet high.
Some of the trees, sorry. Can you say that again? Sorry about that.
Some of them are already about 30 feet high, so we're concerned. Some of the way that it happened, because if they were not tall, they were not, cut back. So there's some that are very thin but very tall.
Right.
We're worried about
So-
them falling off the wire.
Oh, okay, so like I said, what he'll do is he'll cut back away from the line 12 feet from where the energized line goes. And this is a horizontal construction. So it'll go from the outside phase 12 feet out, outside phase 12 feet out, and they'll cut that. And I hate to say it this way, it's like a window, right? You're creating one window around the line so that way you can see that it's clear, there's nothing coming into it. Now, if there's something that's underneath that can grow up into it, they'll remove it, they'll cut it free and clear. But if it's something that is away, they'll try to keep that barrier. And we hired a qualified tree trimmers to go and do that for us. Because they gotta be able to work that while the line is energized. And that's why our forester told them, you don't have to take an outage to the area, because outages can be long when you start to deal with a lot of area to cut. So he said, they can mow in so they can get their trucks so that way it doesn't get stuck. And then cut the trees for the 12-foot clearance around the line.
What about above the line? Because I see a lot of times they cut around, horizontally, but there's the trees above them, and so it seems like, we'll get winds and stuff, high probability of it falling on the line and power outage and possibly fire, so. I was wondering
And that is a tough one because it just depends on the scenario. Some trees are like super big, right? If you look at a tree and it's like really big, there's no truck that can cut it. So they usually cut that window around it and they try to keep that clearance, right? If it's something that they can get to and they can cut and remove, they'll remove above and you won't see anything. In some places, we don't have that option. Your guys' area this doesn't come into play, but I'll explain this as well. In some places, we cannot because the tree itself is part of preservation type tree, right? It's a certain type of tree. And most of the time, and like I said, this is not your guys' area. But you will see in some areas, and I say this is if you go down to the Hilo downtown park, we got to cut that tree almost like a shape around the lines because that tree cannot be removed from the, they want that tree to stay, that banyan tree to stay a certain way. So we have to do those. So if you see that, that's because of that. And most times we will try to remove it because we don't want to have to go back for a tree falling down on our line.
Right.
But in some
Yeah, 'cause
cases,
the
they're
ones-
big. I mean,
The ones that I noticed here in Hāmākua is, we get a lot of rain, so, are the gunpowder, the albesias, those are big and brittle. And so I was always kind of wondering, what the policy is there, because, with the winds, once you prune, it's like an umbrella, just like the giant tree in Honolulu at the, we spend thousands and, after to have it pruned and then have it blow. So anyway, yeah, so that just kind of wondering about that situation.
One last question. Because we're
Yes, ma'am.
concerned about, we're concerned about the eucalyptus trees that are at Kamehameha schools. And I just wondered how you all sorted out who's responsible, whether it was helpful or K-schools.
Marissa's on the line too.
Yes.
yeah, Marissa's on the line, so she'll speak for Kamehameha Schools, but I will speak from our side. So we will, like I said, when we come in to trim the line, and it's an 18-month trim cycle, there's a easement that's there, like magic, right? Everybody expects you to see where that easement sits when you come in, you're not going to see it. So we follow that rule, that 12-foot clearance, and we cut the 12-foot clearance around our line so that we give ourselves space so that when we come back in 18 months, that tree's not into the line, it's still a way that we can cut. So understanding that it's not a perfect system, because it doesn't always grow the way average works, right? Sometimes it grows fast because you got some kind of seasons that are really fast growing seasons, and sometimes they grow slow. But we try, you know, I mean, if we get calls, we try to at least try to get through and cycle through on that 18-month cycle. That's what we shoot for.
Yeah, just a quick point. I think the confusion for some people is they see on, the main highway, they cut the trees back 90 feet or 80 feet or something, and then you come to Capahee and it's 12 feet. So I mean, I understand the difference, but I think there might be some confusion there about what they expect to have done on Capahee Road as compared to those other roads.
Right. And so like the one on the highway, so that one there, it's we have our transmission line that runs right there as well. So Kamehameha Schools did trim back those trees, but part of their property, that's not part of our easement. There's no easement for us there. We have a certain amount of easement that we trim to. And then Kamehameha Schools did trim some of that. So it's like, you know, it's a different scenario in comparison to Kapehu Road. So I would let them speak to it. Sorry.
Thank you, Kevin, and Jen for joining today. And I just want to thank HECO for continued partnership and collaboration with Kamehameha Schools. As Kevin just mentioned, that cut that you folks saw on the main highway near the transmission was a negotiated project between KS and HECO based on the conditions there and the specific type of line. And so at Kapehu Road, and I thank them for coming today because I brought up Mejo's question from last month so that we can bring you some kind of answer today. But what we'll do is after HECO does their trim work, then KS can go in afterwards with a hired arborist just to determine the actual health, safety, and vitality of the trees. I know sometimes just looking at the height of the tree concerns folks, but it doesn't necessarily mean that tree will fall. So rather than just going in and cutting everything, we would like to assess it. And I think, Heather, if you're still on the line, I think there was a similar concern at Ahualoa regarding the health of the trees there, not the ones that we just cut along the power line, but another separate stand. So I believe that's a route we're going to take there as well, Heather, to have an arborist say, yes or no, these trees are good to go. We've done this also in Umalma as well. So I think that's where we stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa.
And Kitty is back. She just turned on her camera. She's returned part-time from maternity leave. So I'm going to be transitioning out of these meetings as Kitty E comes back on full-time next month. So thank you.
I would like to thank Kamehameha Schools for the work that they've done on the Hilo side of Hāmākua on the road going up. A very nice job of cutting the trees back. And it's not just there, also coming up Standard Oil Road. I saw a lot of work that had been done there. So we're very appreciative of the effort that you're making for our safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Question, is there a longer term plan in place to put all the wires underground? So that you're not doing this all the time?
Kevin,
That's fine.
underground.
I heard the question. Sorry, I heard the question. I was trying to unmute. So, good question. Does it make sense to put everything underground? Yes or no? That could go either way. And the reason for that is there's always a cost to going to underground. And right now, when we go underground, everybody pays for it, right? Because it's part of the rates we would end up paying. So already we have high rates based off of fuel that we pay and whatnot. So some places it makes sense though, right? And then when people develop, they choose to develop underground, and some developers choose to develop overhead because that's part of their cost that they put into the properties that they design and build for sale, right? So, yeah, I mean, we like underground too. It's just that we wouldn't do everything underground all one time. And if we do some underground where it makes sense, we'll do it. Can't speak that we would do all of it.
So is there actually a plan for putting lines underground so we could take a look at and see and comment upon whether or not this should be the next area or another area should be the next area? I understand you can't do them all at once.
I'd like to
And again,
comment, I'd like to comment if I may. We have two new subdivisions going in Lehua Street in Hāmākua. If we put it on the developer to underground those utilities, that's just gonna increase the cost of the lots to the prospective buyers. And what we're attempting to do is to make it possible for people to build a home or build on a lot. So if we start doing that sort of stuff, you eliminate a lot of people from the process.
Well, we don't want to do that, but yeah, the truth of the matter is, it is safer to put it underground.
No
And
question.
should the money come from infrastructure funds? Sure. Can it, come from the company itself? Oh, yeah. It's always had to result in taxpayer paying for it. No, but if there isn't a detailed plan to do this, you know what happens? It doesn't happen. And not only did, we see that in Lahaina, that was a serious problem, particularly in Northern California a couple of years ago, because they were not underground. And that also raises the issue, by the way, with regard to the eucalyptus trees. It's not just the unhealthy eucalyptus trees. I tend to think they're very pretty, but they are a real fire hazard. When they go up like Roman candles. They're not like a normal tree in that regard. So.
I think we're gonna try to move on. We still gotta get
All right.
through these 4 agenda items.
Can,
Thank you.
can I just make, sorry, one comment? Because I do appreciate the comments. There is a wildfire safety strategy that the company is developing. And this is going to be done with stakeholders, community members, first responders, and part of the, I believe, phase 1 or phase 2 is looking at critical areas where undergrounding absolutely makes sense. And where the cost to ratepayers makes sense to underground there. And so I think we agree with you. From a company perspective, there really has to be this long-term planning. So we are working on that, and it is our wildfire safety strategy, and it's actually on our website if you want to take a look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for all your comments. So I guess we're back to emergency route discussions. So basically, I think at this point, we're looking at whether the whole committee wants to have the discussion on this, or whether we want to set up a committed action group. What's the committee's members' feelings on that?
I know that last time, at our last meeting, I brought up a desire to have formation of a permitted interaction group in order to specifically for the purpose of looking at the wishes of the residents from on the YPO side of Hāmākua on down to Kukui Highway, including in that also because the main discussion in regards to emergency access out of Kukui Highway and out of YPO is the possibility of a route up Mud Lane to Waimea. And so the fact is that there's also in the Hāmākua Community Development Plan a directive that a study will be done to look at formation of a publicly accessed road from Mud Lane down to Kukui Highway. And so I think there are many divergent opinions about how this should be approached. I think there are some people who would definitely like an emergency access up to toward Waimea, but would be resistant to having a publicly accessed roadway from Waimea down to Kukui Highly. Because it is specified in the community development plan that the study should be done, I would propose that we would, look at that we would try to find out what is the diversity of opinion of the residents that are most affected by that. I talked with the post office department. They said that they would distribute a questionnaire to all the box holders in Kukui Highly on down from Hāmākua to Kukui Highly. I think the same should be done to the people who live on Mud Lane. And I spoke with the president of the Hāmākua Business Association, who in the past have been reluctant about having a publicly accessed roadway from Mud Lane down to Kukui Highly. And I think their opinion also is critical in us in developing an understanding of what people actually want. I think there will be a great range of answers that one would hear from that republic. So
I think the bottom line though is fun, is that we want an emergency exit.
is what?
I think the bottom line here is that we want an emergency route.
But I don't think that can be discussed separately from, we want a public roadway. I think it all needs to be decided. And actually, it's not that I would like a public roadway. I just think I'd like to hear what the people who live there feel.
And there's sort of a middle of the road take on it. It could be public access, but not vehicles. It could be emergency, but then also used for pedestrians and bicycles. And that's another important aspect of it, I think, So I'm in full support of setting up a permitted interaction group for this.
Maria Lonnie actually is online now, and or she was. Oh, there you are. And she actually had initiated discussion of a emergency access out of YPO. I'd certainly like to hear her thoughts on this, and if she, whatever her thoughts are.
Hey, Lonnie, have any comments?
Yeah. I would like for that discussion to be a discussion that we have that's closer to Honoka'a, because those are the people who are most impactful, that are the most impacted, are the ones in Kukui Highly. Not to say that nobody else is, but this was brought up because of the strong winds that had, and it kind of locked them away for a few days to a week. Most of their food went pothole because it was in the freezer, which was okay, but yeah. So I would like it to be held at the place that it will impact the most. So Honoka'a would be my choice. And when I was speaking on it, I was speaking on behalf of the kupuna who brought that up. So and being in Honoka'a,
I think we lost her. Freeze up there. So I think we could see if we get her back. We could certainly have, the permitted interaction group could certainly do some work in Honoka'a, and then I think it's appropriate. have the full discussion by the committee in Hāmākua and with rotating meetings. We just have to set that up. Any other?
I'm just curious, what is the population along Mud Lane?
There's, coming down on the YPO side of Mud Lane, I would say there is probably 20 lots. And, now how many people are actually living there at this point? I don't know. Maybe it looks, when you go down, zoom down on, Google Earth, it looks to me like there's only several houses, maybe 3 or 4 houses.
So the real issue then, it sounds to me like, is an access road out of Whitefield.
And look ahead.
Yeah.
I own the Whitefield Artworks Gallery on Hāmākua Road. And, we've been up and down Mud Lane, currently not paved, it's not really accessible. Yeah, we've got a full road back, but, if Whitefield Valley floods, which it does, and the people that are in Whitefield Valley need to, evacuate. If the cars pile up, and this is what I was talking about earlier, if the cars pile up and they block one of those roads out, then you're gonna be in the flood, and then nobody can get you. So it's an emergency, I would weigh in on that discussion. If it's a public access, or if it's paved, or whatever that discussion is. But evacuation routes are intricately tied to wildfire management. And at this time in Washington DC, the federal funds for wildfire management guiding their way to Hawaii are at historic highs. This is a time, if we want federal funding for evacuation routes to be more possible than they are right now. Now is the time to ask, because Hawaii has been really slammed with wildfires and tragedy around wildfires. And they are, evacuation routes are also related to getting out of the fire zone when the fires move. And the fire's less common, but there's also excessive flood. And we need to evacuate them.
And the reverse, those same routes are critical for the fire departments to get in.
I just think that the federal spigot is open right now. In a way, it hasn't been in that.
Sure. If you don't mind.
What do you think, Heather, as far as getting federal funding for some of these evacuation routes we're discussing?
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of focus on that, not just with respect to Hawaii, but California and Colorado as well. So we were talking about this, and when we were having this discussion, I was thinking about a session I was in yesterday with a council member from Mariposa County outside of Yosemite in California. And what they did is they just put in a grant application, and it was a trail, a paved trail along a fire break that they then put like art and cultural markers, and then they did invasive species. And so they kind of thought about it as this holistic process where they were checking off a bunch of the boxes that they want you to have for these federal grants. So I encourage you, I mean, a permitted interaction group might be the way to go to kind of approach this from a holistic way, thinking about more things you could do, we could do as a community if we did have some kind of access through there. I think the study part, I know, like I said, I mentioned, I don't know if you were there at the beginning, I mentioned that Schatz and Hirono put together a bill with funding from the congressional side to support the study part, sort of the initial work around some of these evacuation routes. So I think there's money for that too.
Any other further discussion from the committee on? Oh, yes.
I just wanna take this conversation and come back and root it back into the CDP document itself a little bit. We did a little keyword searching, and just to kind of double down on what Tom was mentioning, kind of just bring it back to our jurisdiction. So we have section 4.93, policy 55. That's the county action, where it is to perform a feasibility study on developing a scenic route from the Waipio Valley Lookout extending Hāmākua to connect to Mud Lane at the entrance of Waimea. Improving the midsection of Mud Lane would provide an alternate/emergency route to Puihālele and the Waipio Valley Lookout, and would create a scenic loop between Waimea, Waipio Valley Lookout, and Hāmākua. This feasibility study could include assessing public access potential to the Hāmākua Forest Reserve. Yeah, and bisections. That's one, keep in mind that is in the county access, county actions. Portion of the CDP. If we look at the Hāmākua Community Action Guide, we have section 5.9, improve emergency preparedness and hazard mitigation. So we have community action number 32, coordinate with civil defense to develop emergency evacuation plans for Lapahoihoi and the valleys of Waipio and Waimanu. So, I just want to take a second to bring it back to where we are in these meetings. And I would also like to take in Mahalani's request of this conversation being had in the Hāmākua area as close as we can. I'm thinking that something that maybe the committee members could do is chew on these and hunt in the CDP document for other things that to kind of create a more strategic plan on different options. Because if we're gonna have this conversation in front of the community to kind of give them different, to feel out what they are feeling about these different alternates. I know you at one point you mentioned a multimodal or something that fly. So there's a lot of different ways to handle this topic. It's very, and it's supported by the CDP document. So when creating that pig to help navigate the best route that pig should be working on. Or the committee as a whole, if you choose to not go the big route. So maybe it's, yeah.
Can I ask, did you say they're gonna do a study from Waimea down to Kukuihaile? Is that what they're studying?
Yeah, so I'm not saying they are going to do a study, I'm just saying that within the CDP document, a recommendation that the document made was for the county to perform the feasibility study. On developing a scenic route from the Waipio Valley Lookout and extending Hāmākua to connect to Mud Lane. Yeah, so kind of going that, and taking that whole route.
Yeah, okay.
I believe we included Tom's communications in the meeting packet, that's another.
No,
part.
I appreciate that. I just don't want it to be hijacked by the rest of the county, thinking that they're gonna make it a one-way visit to Waipio. That's what I don't want. And that's what the people of Waipio don't want either.
And so these
So
are the
I'm
things-
just putting it out there. I'm just putting it out there that,
Absolutely.
that I'm not going there. So,
Absolutely, so maybe these are the kind of things that we start preparing and taking note of for when we're ready to have that meeting. And kind of hear from the community how what they're interested in, how the application best served. Those are my suggestions to ultimately defer it to the next meeting.
okay, that sounds cool.
In one sense, yes, it needs to be something eventually that works out in fuller form down in Hāmākua. But I think that what I visualize is that it would be desirable to get the opinions of the people, various people. I know that Michelle, president of the Hāmākua Business Association, indicated that she would query the members of the business association to see what their feelings were about having a public access down the Hāmākua side, and she would present that to our group. I know that they don't like it.
Well, I think that's what's important about us having a group that gets us, so that
Yeah.
we put out the right, what we think fits the CDP plan.
Yeah.
And it's different options that are appropriate, not someone. You can easily make it sound like it's something it isn't too, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, just from, the past, I mean, basically, yeah, I mean, our role is to actually facilitate the, the community's voice. And so to hear the range of opinions and then by doing so, come up with what everybody can, live with in terms of emergency preparedness to, from the economic standpoint of access and, impact on Honokaa town and all of those things. And then the residents who will be impacted obviously on those routes. So, that seems to be, like the task of the whatever it is, our committee or the PIG to, get that and also support from the county to get the funding so that, to document or whatever, the results of that. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned it throughout the CDP processes, is not just here. I mean, we have all of these other, like I can think about in Onamu and Hakalau, Lapahoe, all of these areas all have, they used to have connections with the Cane Hall roads. And now it's in private hands. And there's huge implications in terms of emergency preparedness and, not just fire, but, that's one of the things. And I have asked, and suggested that we get the information and put that down in, document, because there is that information and people are gonna forget about it soon because they're in private hands. And a lot of it's the plantation. Like John Cross, I've asked John Cross, I know he has access or, to some of that stuff. For the connections, and I'm aware, just talking to people, there are those routes that people used to regularly go, and it was maintained by the plantation. Now they're gated off, and then some of the bridges and roadways are not being maintained, and sometimes deliberately, and some of them are gated, even though they have access to other people. But those were opportunities that we missed again when, the transition from plantation to non-plantation. And so I really think it's important that we actually include that broader thing, at least to identify, those key routes that would be, we got to resolve in some way, and then come up with options for, initially, at the very least, emergency access. And then not necessarily, public access, but at least for, like, in the case of emergency, so. That's sort of matter. Those
In other words,
things.
it's a big project.
It can be,
You
yeah.
take the whole district into
Yeah,
account.
and then, and then there are gonna be these specific areas that it's gonna be more important to than others, yeah. And this is one of them.
Yeah, well, maybe if we, get one and make some progress on it, be a blueprint how to take care of these other areas and look at them. I don't, what help we need from the county to get those jobs done, so. Is there, I have a question.
I'm gonna, if I can interrupt real quick, I'm gonna say goodnight. It is really late here, so have a great discussion. Follow up with me after, but I need some sleep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we in agreement that we need to do a study on an emergency route out of, out of the work, not the valley itself,
The area, yes, I mean,
it's not just an emergency route. I think it's a variety of things, but the emergency thing is the hot button that's driving things at the moment.
there may be other reasons, but do we in fact need an emergency route? Oh, that, to me, that's the.
Yeah, that was some of the, when, some of the Kupuna came at that couple of meetings ago, they were very concerned because they were impacted when that wind storm and all that stuff. So that was brought up specifically.
so they've seen that it can impact that area, so.
Yeah.
But when I heard Keely say is that the people in Whitefield are opposed to it. You can't
I don't
just
think
be-
that's exactly wrong.
Yeah, you've got to
they're just concerned how it's done, I think.
Well, fine, I think that's great, but we have to get some agreement.
Well, that's why we'll have this kind of community input so that we can hear and other people can hear other people's opinions so that we can come to.
But the underlying thought here is that you need an emergency route. And maybe some people don't like the current plan or whatever it might be. But do we need an emergency route out of that area? And if we do, then somehow we've got to.
I think the simple answer to that is yes, and I think
It's just
the
how.
vast majority of people there would say yes. Their issue, where there is one, is whether it should be a public road or just an emergency access that is closed, say, most of the time, the fire department can open it up and off people go. That seems to me, well, I think about folks, why? That seems to me to be the real question there, not whether an emergency access is necessary. I think they all would agree.
You're just saying, what can
Hang on a second, someone back here.
Yeah, you were talking about cane roads, and you're right, you have almost missed that opportunity. Those old cane roads could serve as an emergency route if they're somewhat under somebody's program to be maintained, or at least driven over periodically to make sure that a car can drive over it. And I'll give you the example, the old Cane Road, up above Lapa. I was up there a few months ago picking 5B. And I was driving along this dirt road, which could have served as an emergency route, but all of a sudden, I came up on a washout. And I couldn't get my truck over it, and I couldn't turn around, and I couldn't back because I was about 4 miles in on that old Cane Road. I finally figured out how to put it in 4-wheel drive, scoot off onto the side and get up. But if there'd been a fire behind me, it wouldn't happen. So it's somebody that are those cane roads being supervised, monitored by anyone?
No, because they're in private hands now.
And so that, okay, and you can't even go in there and see if there's been a washout or anything.
No,
Well, if there's been a fire behind you, that
Yeah.
would be dead.
yeah, that's right.
So, I think we are all in agreement that we need to do something, so can we, if we want to do a pig or I want the whole, I think a pig is a good idea. I don't know the process for deciding who gets on pig, but.
I had a particular interest in the YPO, side, and the mud lane, what shape access should be. Should it be emergency only? I would like to form a pig. And I know Mahealani is intimately interested in that issue also. I'm hoping that she would have interest in joining that. In order to find out what the opinions are of the various people living in YPO, in the Kukuhihaile, in Kapolena, and up on Mid Lane, to find out what they want. And that's all I would like to do. I would just like to find out what they want. And what we would do with that information, I have no idea. I haven't gotten that far, and I have very mixed feelings about it. But I
I'd be
think we
interested in serving on that committee also.
It's like I said, though, any discussion has to, you have to think of it of an alternate route. You know, we're talking about an emergency.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. Oh, you hear someone up there? No?
I just want to mention, Brad, you're absolutely right about the synergy between King Hall Road, the Whitefield Road, the Mud Lane, all of those on the agenda for that could be evaluation. There is a synergy in there to discuss the evacuation process as a whole. And again, under the emergency management, those private landowners are, can be approached or blocking roads that we need to evacuate. And it's not just, Mudline, and it's not just.
Yeah.
Game Hall Road is a really good example, and the other roads that are there. So there is a synergy, and we should exploit that synergy with that whole idea of having evacuation route.
Is any other member interested in being a part of that pig? I hear Tom and Melanie.
Are we talking about just the YPO Kapui Highway here, or are we talking about, and do we need separate pigs for each of
I
this?
think we need to learn and find out what is a good process in maybe one area, and then we can apply that to other areas. I don't know that we can just.
You know, like my suggestion would be, this is important and it's been brought up already.
Right.
And so go with it. And then out of that process, you gotta just wear your big picture thing, and then we can identify during that process the criteria that will apply throughout the district, and then we can broaden it then at that point, and then maybe then we start at some point, when we go to different areas, to let people know, we can put it on the agenda that we're gonna be covering those things, and they can also identify, because I know in the areas that I live, there's those issues that are, and then once you kind of light the fire, then people will,
And hopefully
they'll
we
give you some opinion.
Hopefully, we've educated ourselves
Yeah,
by that point
yeah.
too, and then we're a little more.
However, I go back to what Heather was saying, that this is a, kind of a time sensitive issue also, and it would be desirable to look at as much as we could as early as we could.
So can I just say, yes, why you guys are all thinking about this, so. If the committee is going to create a thing today, we have to define the scope of the investigation and the authority of each member, so just think about that, and then I hear everybody saying you want the committee's input. Today would be if you guys want to form a committee with the scope of the investigation, each member's authority. Then at the next meeting, they present the findings, get public testimony on whatever they want to testify on. And then at the third meeting, then the committee will make a decision, whatever that decision is gonna be. I think Brad will also have what to hear from everybody, they're located in the community, and whatever you guys want to, based off of that.
It doesn't have, it could be 2 months to get information.
Yeah, there's no time frame.
Yeah,
When
because they might need to have several, the pig go out to
Yeah.
the community
Right.
there to
Definitely.
solicit, the various input.
And so, also, the gentleman who's not a committee member, I think he was often to
Mhm.
assist, so. Committee members.
Can also be part, right?
Can be part of it, participate, they're not outside.
I just wanted to be clear here. If we establish a pig, is that pig's focus gonna be on an emergency road out of?
You say, and putting everything else, possibilities all aside? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because if there are other issues, then we don't have to deal with it.
Well, but there's also, when it comes to funding, if we're looking at this all up and down the Hāmākua coast, as Heather was saying. People that have already put in applications to do this, tried to hit the buttons to get you the grant from the federal government. And it wasn't just that, they had all kinds of things in there that click those buttons.
Cultural markers, explanatory, or what you're looking at.
Multi-use maybe.
The history of the place.
With all of those things come into play
You get points.
on this YPO one, because it was brought up. That's why it's in there, because there was.
It wasn't just the road, it was also.
Yeah, it was also the access,
Access.
and then also, having a hub at the top of YPO so that we cannot have the inundation of folks going down to YPO. So that was also part of, the whole big picture.
Say that as the scope. So turn that into a statement of scope.
So it seems like, the folks will be this particular area, right? The Waipio Kukui Highway, Hāmākua, routes. You can call it emergency or not. And then to kind of focus and get the community's input on that, so that we can, you know, move closer to some sort of agreed upon consensus. And then from there, we can, you know, let's not, you know, like broaden it out to the rest, but those issues will come out that we can apply to, you know, the broader Hāmākua CDP, but to not, just to give the focus for the pig, I think it'd be.
Well, Brad, should the committee that you've been working with, should that be part of the thing?
No.
Well, I think you can just, you know, just, we gotta just define the pig scope. That's what we're trying to do at this meeting. And then Mahealani is part of also the Waipio thing, so that, you know, she can help facilitate, you know, the input from the Waipio folks as well as.
But I don't want this discussion to go, you know, off in a bunch of different directions.
Well, we get to control it. I mean, that's how we
Well,
affect the
that's
scope.
what I'm saying, the discussion ought to be around whether or not we need an emergency road out of that area.
So you can, somebody, you can propose a motion right now, if somebody wants to make a motion on the scope of the big.
I'll make a motion that the primary focus of the pig should be figuring out where you have an emergency road out of that area.
And that's all.
And well,
We have a second to that motion or discussion, which is it first, sorry? Discussion,
No second, you need a second.
yeah, right.
Well,
We have a-
Mahealani might want to weigh in on it.
Well, yes,
Did you hear my motion, Mahealani?
Can you do it again? I keep going in and out.
so wants you to give the motion again.
Oh, yeah, I'm making a motion, not Mahealani, that we establish a pig to look at an emergency route out of that area. That is the primary focus.
Okay. Actually, I think it's in the original CDP to investigate. Oh, what were you saying earlier, Brad?
Oh, about the public access and some different things along with that, what was in the CDP.
Yeah, in the original.
Study. You have mentioned that there's already a approval or mention that we should have a feasibility study for that area. It seems to be pretty well phrased when you did the search. That the county has already said we would like to have a feasibility study about the right area and solicit community input. Sounds something like that.
I understand all that, what I'm saying.
Right, we were just trying to make it clear for Mahealani. We can read that segment of it again, let's do that.
So, yeah, to go over policy 55, perform a feasibility study on developing a scenic route from Waipio Valley Lookout extending Hāmākua to connect to Mud Lane at the entrance of Waimea. Improving the midsection of Mud Lane would provide an alternate / emergency route to Kupiahane and the Waipio Valley Lookout, and would create a scenic loop between Waimea, Waipio Valley Lookout, and Hāmākua. This feasibility study could include assessing public access potential to the Hāmākua Forest Reserve.
I don't want to get off in those other areas.
Okay, that's fine, so you've made a motion then to just strictly have a thing concerning the emergency exit. Okay, do I hear a second? Not hearing a second, that motion does not pass.
Not a second.
When are you starting?
Yeah.
Make another one.
Yeah, I guess my motion would be that, just pretty much what was in the CDP. And that makes it a little broader, but it will include, and looking at it, and for sure, the emergency access, but also some of these other potential options that were voiced by the community at that particular time. And I think there still exists some of that sentiment. So that's what I would broaden it up a little bit, but so we can get the community's input.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brad's motion is, to focus on, emergency evacuation route from the Whitefield, Hāmākua Highway area and other uses.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
motion just be to like look into policy 55 of the CDP or some, to review and.
Solicit community input, regarding
That's key, I think.
Yeah.
We need to include.
Because that's our-
the motion that,
Yeah, because that's our role. I mean, we're here to actually just make sure that we get the community's voice and input in.
Yes, I mean, so once you ask for community input, you've opened it up to everything, so that's just, I mean, that's just what we're supposed to do, so.
So it would be to investigate the community's interest in,
Yeah.
evacuation route of Whitefield High, area and other uses for the potential.
Yes,
I think we should be specific about that other use being creation of a public roadway.
Say other uses including such as.
Yes, there you go.
Public roadway, I think.
Yeah, the scenic, and then also the pedestrian, open space. Because that's another thing, the hunting, access.
Public access
Yeah.
potential.
Right, right. Because you include that, I'm sure, I guarantee you get people out there.
Can I just send a suggestion too, like if your goal, your scope is to find out what the community wants, to find out what the criteria that you should, those buttons that you should hit in order to get funding, and work with the county to implement the feasibility study and then come up with several options to present to the community at the next meeting. Because we don't have to name all those options that we're thinking of.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I guess the timing would be, like, get the input and then we gotta figure out, yeah.
yeah, when we keep it fairly simple to start with, just mostly about, we just want information about the.
Communities, desires in terms of.
Exactly. I think at least when I had originally visualized this, all I wanted to do was find out what the community wanted, what the people wanted through there. What, again, we would do with that. I don't know. I would just, maybe even ignore it. And,
So would solicit community input.
Yeah.
The goal should be to solicit community input.
yeah, that's what the goal is. Yeah.
Absolutely, just solicit, yeah.
Yeah, so consider future potential uses of. The Mud Lane Road, whatever the whole, I think let's just use what's in there, basically.
Is it solicit community input
Yes.
in regards to policy 55
Yeah.
in the Hāmākua CDP's document?
Or-
Too vague?
Well, that's specifically evacuation now, right? They also want to.
Yeah.
The other things that are included in.
Public access.
Public access.
Well, it has the feasibility study could include assessing public access.
Oh, well, there you
potential.
go.
Yeah.
That-
So it
Yes.
covered, it checks the boxes.
That's the scope, and then you have to define the members.
Okay,
So we have scope, we have. Mahalani, Tom, and myself. Is anybody else interested?
I think I heard it, yeah.
Yeah, we officially on the page, but we can participate as much as we want to.
I'm happy to help.
Okay, leave your name and number.
We'll be in touch.
So do we have a motion then?
A second.
We had a motion, didn't we?
Yeah, so to solicit the community's input on policy
55.
55.
I think that policy 55, mentions emergency evacuation. The generation of this was not, the way it was originally brought up 3 or 4 months ago was not in terms of policy 55, it was in terms of we need an emergency evacuation route.
But it's
I
in
think-
there, it's in there.
Yeah, right, I know. Well, okay. Do we have a second?
Did we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All the questions, discussion? Already had it, right?
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Not long and wave your hand out.
Okay.
Hi,
Okay,
every
unanimous.
time I turn on, every time I turn on my sound, I always get knocked off, so.
Okay. Right.
Okay, the motion passes.
Beautiful.
Okay.
We have 10 minutes left in the meeting.
Okay,
Shall we prioritize a little bit the list?
Yes, we have Lahela Street subdivision sidewalk funds availability. So is there it says ratification of a letter, is there a letter already?
This was proposed by Mr. Feidelman, AC member. Do you have a drafted letter? Or-
I did not draft letter. One of the-
Oh, it was submitted.
You wanna give us a little synopsis of what this
It was
is
last week.
all about?
Well, let me.
Sidewalks funding,
do you
briefly,
have,
briefly,
Do
Richard.
you have this on your computer?
elevator, yeah.
So can you put it on the
Same
screen?
night that we had the CDP. For same afternoon.
Good.
CDP.
Well, go ahead.
And I'd like everybody to be able to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got another little letter.
Here's, and I can share this.
While we work on pulling it up,
Okay, and when you pull it up on the screen, I want you to turn it upside down.
you want to like this,
That's right.
all right.
Yeah, I want you to, I actually, I really want to have you.
So for orientation, we have the skate park, Enter, Circle. The rest of the park, and you're talking about that road that goes
That's
up my
right. That's
text.
like Hewett Street.
Okay, all right.
Does everybody know where I'm at here? Yep.
Right
Okay.
there. Sure.
So one of the things I'd like to point out to you is we have gotten approval to put speed humps at the one-lane bridge up toward the top. If you start at the top of Lehua
Right here.
and you go down to that first bend,
That's that one. Yeah.
start at the top and come down to this bend right here. Right here.
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing at, right here.
Okay, that's a effectively a one-lane bridge.
Can you rotate the entire video? One more. Uh-oh.
Excellent, here we go, all right.
Okay, so we're talking right here, this bridge. Correct?
Yes. So what I want the committee to know that the neighborhood there put together a petition, if you will, to the county to install some speed humps on this street because people are driving too fast on it, and this one-lane bridge is a little dicey sometimes trying to get up or down because people are driving so fast.
Okay.
Now, the other proposal that's on the list today is I'm proposing that they need to put a sidewalk. First of all, let me point out something to you. Of all the streets that we have that come from the Belt Road down to Mamani Street, there is not one sidewalk. Not one. And I walk down this street as well as other people do, and we've got 2 new subdivisions going in on Lehua Street. There are total, there's gonna be 40 homes going up there. And I'm not gonna point out where they are right now, but they're right here on Lewis Street. And so we need to have a sidewalk that goes all the way from Lackawanna down to Mamani Street. And the county got substantial, over $1 million awarded for pedestrian safety. And I've mentioned that to Heather, and we ought to be getting a piece of those funds to put in this sidewalk. And by the way, you want to keep in mind also is that the community college is expanding. So you're gonna have, and with these 40 new homes, we're actually, one of the things we're trying to focus on is find ways for healthcare workers to get a piece of land for a home. And so if we have people in those subdivisions walking to work, that's another reason why we need a sidewalk.
I'd like to say in reference to the Hāmākua CDP, it's policy 70 is another county action.
Right.
Improve safe pedestrian access and increase connectivity in Hāmākua. Make safe improvements to downtown Hāmākua based on complete streets and or other evidence-based planning principles, along with improvements to include additional pedestrian crosswalks on Mamani Street, additional sidewalk development, such as along Lake Wood Street, and safe marked walkways to parking areas servicing town.
Right.
So, for the committee doing this, it is rooted, Mr. Viner's.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that we need to make that real clear that.
So are we looking for the county to do a feasibility study or?
I don't think we need to do a feasibility, well, they will want to do something.
Sidewalk, pursuing sidewalk development.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other comments by the committee?
And this is a topic that interests the committee, I think, considering our timing moment. That maybe this is, if you guys are interested in it, then this is something that planning can go and look into more further, or if anybody has other input that they want to share about it, and this is something you can maybe defer to the next meeting,
Yeah,
about to
maybe.
go more thoroughly if
Maybe the process, resources and funding. And
what are
things like
different
that.
pathways to achieving that maybe.
Well, I hope one of those pathways is getting some of that federal funding. That the county's got, it's over $1 million.
Yeah, just to know what the requirements are on that, and then
Let's see,
whether it fits.
that, is that something that the committee is interested in?
Well, maybe the highway department or somebody can make a presentation to us.
Those are typically the wrong people that ask. Giving me my own personal experience.
We gotta start someplace, right? I think we've made a start here, we're agree.
Yeah.
If we are in agreement,
Yeah, I think we're in agreement that we should get some information on feasibility of the, and how the county would go about, and where the money comes from, and those kind of things, and if it's even feasible.
Yeah, because it's adjacent to the park, so you could, you don't have to stay right. Doesn't have to be a sidewalk attached to the roadway. You can kind of veer off. It's even better.
well, there's been some discussion about that. And the problem is with kids going to school. They'd like that sidewalk to be not passing through the woods or something like that.
Well, let's see if it's feasible first. So is that something that planning can dig up some information on?
I'm definitely down to go ask her and see what we can find on our side. And then again, it's their discernment.
And can we have that for the next meeting?
You can try.
Okay.
You can have, what's, surround transportation.
Sure, we can have the time to come, I can see what we can, get going on that side. We can help map it out for us.
Okay, so that got us number three, so just a real quick discussion on. Met with Miriam and Sinclair on a Zoom here not too long ago. We talked about some different things and one of them was. Is everybody happy with the format we have, monthly meetings? You notice this meeting was a little earlier. I like that. The 8th County likes, staff likes that because they don't have to stay out so late. But the other, my only concern is that the working people from coming to the thing, which. Yeah,
Well, hopefully we're gonna establish a location on a car too, and we can have a meeting there.
yeah. So that's a discussion. I don't know if we want to have that right now or if we want to defer that to the next meeting since it's getting 6 o'clock. Or does anybody care?
Well, I think it's important, hey, Alani, who's been, I think she came in late and I think it's because she works.
Right.
And consequently, I wonder, is this desirable to have a 4 o'clock meeting? Is not perhaps 5:30 still better, but. I guess there's trade-offs either way.
Yeah. Thank you, Thon. I've only been home for a week. We were in America for 2 weeks, so I'm still recovering. And I forgot today, so I'm sorry. But now I have helpers, so if we need to go like 4:30, that's fine. I have 2 workers, so however everybody wants to decide, I do think it's important for people who work and need time to be a part of it. That's important too.
Yeah.
But I think maybe sharing the wonderful Zoom may be a little better because then they can watch, participate, and still be home making dinner for their family.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Fine to me. So we were happy with sticking with.
Is there a reason we chose Mondays?
No, I think it was just a day.
We actually have Wednesdays, this Wednesday, we didn't have to host, but
Yeah.
so this Monday is just an abnormal.
Oh.
They would be Wednesday, we would go back to Wednesdays at 4 o'clock.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the date of the March meeting then?
Just, do you have that? Let's see if I can.
It looks like March 6th. Or
I believe March 13th.
I see.
oh, we're going the 2nd.
I believe we're doing second.
Well, second Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, 13th then.
We'll keep it at 4 for now. 4:30.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I don't know, like my sense is that, in terms of just access for people,
I know
5
this is
is probably the limit that I wouldn't wanna. Again, it's just, I don't mind 4 o'clock, because I'm retired, but the 5 o'clock in terms of. If you wanna have.
5
people
works.
Have a chance.
yeah, I'm just thinking about the meeting in Hāmākua, where we had pretty full audience and there was a lot of younger people there, working,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Is there a way that we as the committee could make it a priority to have whatever's in that area be what we talk about first, or
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there.
We talked staff and I about trying to coordinate meetings so they're in the right neighborhood, as far as agendas go.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely, staff is working on mapping out. First, the priority is county facilities, and then from areas, towns that we don't have county facilities, reaching out to see what other, meeting rooms we can get a hold of. But we're hoping to be moving along the district, you know.
Yeah, and
Nothing-
I think it would be a good practice, so when we're wherever the meeting's gonna be, have those agenda items. You know, up top, so they can talk about at the beginning and early part of the meeting, so that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
You have the discretion, Chuck. You know,
Yeah.
kind of,
yeah. So is 5 o'clock, is that sound time? Third of compromise is 5:30, gave you half an hour. I got half an hour, I'll take it. Okay, so then, just a reminder, if anyone has agenda items for the next meeting, feel free to email myself, staff. Mention, hey, Lonnie, we can all. Synchronous time. Okay.
I've been talking to the co-center, the community college, about the possibility of meeting there. And the question is, if they want to charge us to use that meeting room, does the county have the funding to do that?
That's my, do you know how much? Because I know we were doing the library and they also charged $20. That was something that.
that's not what I want.
Yeah, but we can't use it all.
Exactly, so it went, I'm just as an example in terms of fees that would, I can,
So I guess,
find out.
Well, I'll find out.
Yeah, so if we can get a price on that, yeah,
Okay.
that'd be. Yeah.
Or free. And it's a public purpose, it's a community purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. So,
What about that number for
what did we miss?
the letter for that,
Article on the agenda.
for that ornament, there was a letter on the ornament home.
I don't see it there.
I'm sorry.
Oh. Maybe,
The letter of request.
oh, gotcha, sorry. I got that one here somewhere. Okay, so it's about the,
Yeah,
yes,
after one of the meetings, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, Dwight Tuckamini made a presentation and he was talking about some months or years earlier, he and Heather had envisioned well, just a re-envisioning of the old highway, the old Mauna Loa highway, and following that meeting, I kind of went through the Google Earth maps of the highway and made a couple of tours of the highway, and the one property was of interest on the scenic route between Pepakeo and Papaikou. And turned out it was 80 acres that that encompasses 40 acres on either side of the Kawainui stream. And the Kawainui stream is the stream that has the tunnel coming out with water coming through the tunnel. Looks like a lava tube, but I'm told that actually that was blasted out long ago. And so at any rate, I called discovering that the owners were a botanical garden on Kauai. I called the manager of the botanical garden and we had some discussions. He allowed that myself and a group of people went through the property and eventually we went down into the stream gulch itself. Again, starting up at the bridge overlooking the tunnel and the pool. It is a spectacularly beautiful stream and gulch, and the upper sections of the property have been, because it's a botanical garden in Kauai that also has interest in forestry, and have planted many hundreds of acres of forest on Kauai. they planted teak and mahogany in approximately, I would say, 50 of the 80 acres, and that's of course up top. The in my discussion with the manager, he indicated that the property had been on the market some years ago, 2 years ago, for $10 million, and it did not sell. He also indicated that the owner of the botanical garden had died last year, and that they were looking seriously at selling this. And so we formed a group of, well, basically three or four residents there in the Hāmākua, Pepekeo area. And a representative of the Ponk Commission, or a lady from the Ponk Commission, Tony Withington from Kohala, who's put miles and miles of the Kohala coastline on the Ponk, under Ponk management. So we created a application for Ponk acquisition of this land. In speaking with the manager, he was not interested in development of public access or public easement because he was on the verge of selling this. I had actually written out, or I had submitted, submitted a 20-page application to the Ponk Commission. You know, I had been expecting that this application was going to be on the meeting packet today, but I also acknowledge that the manager of the property had indicated to me that he had a little bit of hesitation about spreading the pictures of the properties among the general public because he didn't want a lot of people going down in the stream. Generally speaking, the fishermen access the stream via a rope down one of the sides of the gulch. There's a trail, looks to be a trail on the other side of the gulch, and but it rapidly gives out to where there's no trail. But you know, it's accessible, but it's a bit challenging going down. But so I took the pictures which were included in the application to Ponk out of this, out of what I was hoping was going to be on the in the meeting packet today. But I think probably in asking that the pictures be deleted, I probably got the whole thing deleted because I probably you know, said something that was interpreted as that we couldn't actually put this in the agenda or in the meeting packet. Unfortunately, because actually it's a very nice description of the land. It has recommendations from Heather Kimball. It has recommendations from the Brian Nielsen, the administrator of the Division of Aquatic Resources, and the Makahanalua Fishing Association has volunteered to do. I think when something is acquired by the Ponk Commission, the county through the Ponk process, they demand that a organization, nonprofit organization, be available to do management of the area. So the Fishing Association has actually so volunteered, along with several other groups.
Do they have a 501c3?
I believe they do, yeah. And so what I would like to do is I would like to ask without anyone having seen this, this application, I'd like to actually ask for an endorsement of the application, and I wrote out a letter of endorsement, which I believe, was in the packet. What I would like to do is I would like to present this letter of application at our next meeting. However, our next meeting is on the 13th of March, and the presentation to the Palm Commission, where the letter of application would be of value, is on the 11th of March. And we've already submitted the application, but they're allowing that the letter of endorsement will come in later. So I would like to, if you would consider, ask for an endorsement of this application unseen, which is a little embarrassing, but it might be of value for public purchase of this property.
Well, could we move our meeting back? So that we could hold the meeting before they go to the pond?
Well, of course, that would be fine with me, but
Well, it seems like the acquisition of this property. We've had some internal discussions about it. And it's something that the local people would certainly like to see acquired, and I think you made it clear that it's really could become a public park.
yeah.
Has there been much?
Yeah, go ahead.
First, I'd like to kind of, hopefully next time we can allot time to each of the agenda item. We spent a lot of time presenting the item before. But we kind of wandered all over the place,
Right.
which two items, and I wish it'd be more tighter.
Yeah.
But to do, so just a recommendation.
Yeah, no,
But
totally understood.
I haven't read this either, let's put it that way.
No one has. I haven't.
But regardless, I'm going to read it and I'm going to testify in favor of it. I really want to reason why I'm doing it. The development of Oscar, that group, what's that, Act 37 to the Hawaii County Code, the group that seeks sustainability, climate equity, and resilience. It shows where the county is heading. So this is the vision. I agree with that. What it's going to do is it's going to break this idea of silos. To me, that's most disappointing is government talking silos, even within agencies. This is an opportunity that we can break this silo, and I'll tell you why. The park has bought some land for access to fishing community. But the point is, why get access if there's no fish? What's the point? You can't, there's no damn sand beach, so why am I there? You see, we're so human-based in what we can. It's about, whenever there's any project or any effort, the first thing government does is try to eliminate or lessen the stressor. Right? That's what they do. Don't do this, build that, build that. They spend almost 99% of the time on the planning process with all the bala'au comes in from lower empty promises. But there's no police action. We have this $9 million agricultural farm next to me that has never had a blade of agricultural product on it. And the county does not respond. It's a game, so why bother? The point is, this Oscar community talk about, there's a bigger threat now of the sustainability issue, the threat of climate issues. The heck that's going to change no matter what you do. Okay? So POMP always looks in what we as humans, like you said, accessibility. To me, the point is not accessibility. Why is there no fish? You ask yourself. It's not overfishing. I challenge anybody that tells me it's overfishing. It's not true. I grew up here. I started fishing in 1955. I was part of the plantation movement
It's a full community, so I grew up here. Every part of Hawaii is not like the west side of the island you think about. It's not Lahaina, it's not Waikiki, it's not Kona. There's absolutely no coral reef on the Hāmākua coast. It's zero. So why talk about coral reef when there's no coral reef? Next time you're flying to Hilo, try to sit on the market side of the airplane. What do you see? A narrow boulder beach, right? That's all you see. But the key in productivity in fishery is estuaries. If you've been to the mainland, look at San Francisco Bay, you look at Chesapeake Bay, you look at the Mississippi Delta, that's what drives the fishery industry. But here we ignore that. Simply shutting fishing down ain't gonna solve the problem. This is why I asked again on record, I'd like to thank you very much for scrambling to get me those pictures. I wanted to see what the mouth looked like. Most of the streams here end up in a terminal waterfall, 3 falls. Okay? This estuary at the bottom is small. This thing is a huge estuary. Let's protect this, not for us to go see, but it's an example of resiliency. You know, for any fish, most of the fish that we catch here along the coast, all the fishermen will tell you, they're not the beauty queens you see in songs, or the yellow tang, all those beauty queens. These are fishes that are fish to eat. This is what part of culture is. Every one of those fish need estuary to grow up, and without them, there'll be no. These are nursery habitat. Why can we protect? Not because it's beautiful, but it's functionally beautiful. It's like a book, you know. Think about that. If we keep this place in perpetuity, it's like a book. It's going to be a gift that keeps on giving. You think about that. And don't worry about whether you can walk down there. Don't think about it's beautiful. It's don't forget that. Think about its functionality. And this is where we can break the silos between the county and the state. This is why I really take great pleasure in trying to join up with Hāmākua, because we can break that barrier. Okay. And what it also does, if it's the fishing group that wants it access, they can also be the eyes, the perpetuators on the cliff side that cut all little pile and throw it over the side. Hāmākua coast, I fish the whole coast. I fish all the way up to Poland. Whenever there's a new land, you can tell somebody about a new piece of land, all Opala over the side on the cliff. I've complained formally. County says it's not in my Kuleana. The state goes, it's not my Kuleana, so whose Kuleana is it? Think about the narrow boulder beaches, how much I fished there all night long. It's a sheer boulder beach. There's a landslide, it's gone, nothing. You know, so think about this. I am going to testify whether it's from this committee or as an individual. I will do both, either way. If you want to support it, fine. If not, that's okay. And I will be more than happy to present to you what I'm going to testify to support this. So don't think about it as, all these punk proposals are, it's beautiful, beautiful view plane. I need parking to go to B. It's about us anthropogenic. But think about resiliency. Think about what can we let nature do. This is nature's way of basically resiliency to combat this whole issue about threats from the climate. I'll end it there, but regardless whether you committee vote or not, I think it's fair for you all to read it. But regardless, I'm going to go either as a committee member or as an individual. I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
The groups that have stepped up. What's their track record in terms of, having volunteers to do the pump will likely, in terms of management?
Management, identified, management maintenance partners, Pepakeo Community Development Corporation, Makanahiloa Fishing Association, Hawaii Island Land Trust, I didn't know that, but Onamea Resiliency Hub, Lama Lama, Ulu, Department of Aquatic Resources, and again, a department, wrote a nice, or division, wrote a nice letter of recommendation here. And I don't know, I will say that the Makahana Loa Fishing Association has also volunteered for management of a ponk acquisition, which I believe is either taking place now or perhaps already has taken place, of a coastal property also in Pepekeo. I believe it's just on the south side of the Puhonua, yeah. And I believe that they have, I'm told, 100 members, and so and one of their members is on their group that has been working on this, and my sense is that they will prioritize preservation in the way that you have described it. You know, it is a spectacularly beautiful place, and I know for there's
You said 50 of the 80 acres was
Is-
planted
in
forest.
Peak and Mahogany.
The remainder, the Mackay areas along the coast or what, just,
Is the gulch going out. They've planted the teak and mahogany all the way to the cliff.
oh,
And so,
but that's 30 acres.
yeah, about 30 acres of gulch, I would say, yeah. It's, and incidentally, I think it's instructive to realize that Kabai Nui, the name of the stream, translates as big water. And, you know, yes, it is a very important stream, and, you know, what Bobby was saying about its, estuary is, it's a very large sandy bottom estuary, and it's, you know, but a habitat that probably needs, you know, very important.
So, you know, I just have very limited knowledge of ponk. I understand what the concept is. And I looked to see what other properties were available on the Hāmākua coast. Apparently, there's some they're looking at. There's a list. In your mind, where does this fit on that list of other properties?
To me, I look, again, I told you, I look at it not from this beauty,
Sure.
not from this beauty perspective, from its functionality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what it's going to do by getting this, the state is already committed working the estuary. There's a big push and pull in the state for monies. Are we gonna look at coral reefs for tourists? Or are we gonna look for productive areas for local people? I think that's the big fight. Okay. Again, it's the whole ugly duckling story. Yeah, there's no HTA pushes for the coral side. But if you along Hāmākua, you need to push for the Boulder Beach. If you see the amount of landslides there, it's serious. And the reason is the state is committed to studying this. They already have decals they're giving out, freebies. And I'm gonna have it out to you, you can put in the car. It says the estuary is my home, the movie is my home. So you look at, again, so what is pump? The pump is not like a beach park, as you say, it's a functional. But what drives a estuary is the Hāmākua forest. Without the regular flow of the Hāmākua native forest, you're not going to have a healthy estuary. But government failed to recognize, even within, I worked for DLR for 30-something years. The divisions within the department do not talk to each other, although they're all connected. You look at the native perspective with the Makai. But with Western thinking, it's always the other way, it's all cut off, so this way you don't cross those boundaries. But is this a way we can set this thing aside so you can force people to connect it and work outside the sign? Because when you get this piece for the fishermen, say, okay, guys, look, Malta, you cut in the forest, Malta, that's why you don't want fish here. The whole concept of overfishing is really been driven by environmental groups. But anyway,
So in your mind, this is the most important.
oh, I guess.
Yeah.
When I tell you what the estuary is, what isn't it? Yeah, anyway.
So do you want me, okay, so I've written a letter of endorsement, you know, that I was hoping this group would sign. And present to the Pump Commission. Would you like me to read it?
Well, what are the other, what are the other, we got your two guys' opinions.
Based on what Bob just told us. He's a longtime resident here. He's had a lot of experience. I'm willing to endorse this without any further discussion.
Okay. Should we take a vote?
Well, I'm just curious, Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have preferred to see the application. I did go online to look at where the property is located.
Oh, good, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just not familiar with.
Oh, I see, yeah,
Okay, thanks.
thank you,
Happy to help out with both of you.
thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yes,
Then your preference would be to hold on endorsing this?
You know, I'm fine. I mean, I would have preferred to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than just say.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I feel the same way, yeah. It is what it is, and here we are. So we might not want to pass it by, huh?
Should I make a motion?
Is there a motion?
I move that the letter of endorsement that is in the meeting packet for nomination of the nomination by the Hāmākua Community Development Plan Action Committee for nomination of the properties described below to the Public Access, Open Space and Natural Resources Commission for consideration of acquisition by the County of Hawaii.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a second, all those in. Oh, discussion, we had our discussion.
Yeah,
So they're willing to sell, right? I mean.
yes, there, as a matter of fact, I
Yeah, quite a
talked to the
bit.
Realtor today, they've assigned a Realtor. He said that it will be on the market within a week. So, you know, the issue at this point is should this be presented, because the Pump Commission is going to have discussion of this and presentation of this in March, but the decision will not be made until July. And then it goes to the county to decide what they want to do. And consequently, with this going on the market in 2 weeks or a week, it is questionable how whether that is actually going to be of any value or any use. I think the big issue at this point is whether to take this directly to the mayor and just point out to him that there's this property which has immense public value. And you know, see if they wish to enter into discussion with the owner prior to that process.
Sounds like you're gonna go meet somebody.
Well, but I'm not sure what the other members of the
Yeah,
group want.
yeah.
And I'm not sure what is best, you know, I think I don't know. I think, you know, what Bobby said is incredibly important, and I don't know how that gets. You know, does that generate enough enthusiasm in the mayor's office
Depends on
to
who's
just
listening to it.
offer $8.2 million, you know, for this? I don't know.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it. just bring it quicker next time.
And I will put this in the meeting packet.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn?
I think March.
Second. Oh. Sorry. You're so quiet over there. Good night. I gotta get used to this. Okay, I guess we're adjourned.
March 11th.
Yeah, it was. In a second.
So that'll be Monday.
Yep.
By Todd?
Motion by,
You got it?
Oh, I
and where?
What's that motion to adjourn?
Oh, okay.
And then we have.
And then.
Yes, yes.
Good, everybody.